Hi everyone, my name is Mahsa Adib and I am a PhD candidate in landscape architecture here at Penn State. Of my research, which focuses on exploring the significant determinants of residents' behavior in green stormwater infrastructure adoption, mostly recognized as a sustainable practice to stormwater management. So to begin with, I would like to take a minute and define one important term that this research explores, that is green stormwater infrastructure, which from now on I will call GSI, refers to a set of practices and systems that are designed to manage and treat stormwater runoff through natural processes. Unlike traditional gray infrastructure, which relies on pipes and concrete channels to convey stormwater away from urban areas, GSI mostly uses vegetation, soil, and other natural elements to mimic the natural water cycle and treat stormwater on site. Some of the examples of GSI systems that might sound familiar to you are, and also shown in this graph, are rain gardens, bioswales, green roofs, permeable pavers. So basically, compared to gray infrastructure that focuses on collecting the water as soon as possible and take it out of sight, out of mind, GSI slows down the water, absorb it, treat it on site, and then let it go. So adopting GSI in urban areas particularly is important for urban landscape sustainability and resiliency, because as urban areas continue to expand, the demand for efficient stormwater management systems becomes much more important. As I mentioned, that the traditional gray stormwater management methods are often insufficient in handling the challenges that are happening because of climate change and extreme weather events. So this is where green stormwater infrastructure emerges as a sustainable complement to conventional stormwater management systems, which eventually provides a variety of environmental, social, and economic advantages. However, despite all these benefits, municipalities usually face a variety of barriers in implementing GSI at a public level. And that is because of various reasons like limited available land, high costs associated with stormwater infrastructure. So they usually rely on residents to install these practices on their private properties. Municipalities often face challenges in expanding these systems, even in the residential scale, because of different reasons. For example, because of the federal or city policies, governance issues, the availability of resources, and also socio-cognitive factors. Of all these barriers, the socio-cognitive factors have been identified as the most critical ones. However, they are the least researched. These socio-cognitive factors can be related to residents' negative mindset and attitudes related to GSI, or their reluctance to accept the maintenance responsibility of these systems, and also their perceived risk of cost and performance. And most importantly, all of these are caused because of the lack of knowledge of what GSI is, what its benefits are, and also because of their lack of exposure or experience with these practices. And also they might even have a very limited knowledge of stormwater issues, and also how GSI can help with all of these stormwater management problems. So overall, we know that knowledge matters because it shapes individuals' perceived benefits and challenges, and also it shapes their perceived readiness to, or in order to make the connection between what the problem is, which is the stormwater management issues, and what the solution might be, which can be green stormwater infrastructure. And these, those with the lack of knowledge about these systems are unable to make this connection, and also they fail to take any meaningful action to adopt these practices, and they might improperly use them or do not provide any maintenance, or do not even understand how these practices function, so eventually results the failure of the project. As a result, literature recognizes environmental education and also the increased exposure to these practices as key factors in overcoming the residential scale socio-cognitive barriers to our GSI adoption. However, even though we understand that knowledge and experience are cited as critical societal barriers to GSI adoption, there are still some other conflicting opinions about the role of knowledge in the literature. For example, some studies suggest that simply increasing knowledge does not necessarily lead to changes in behavior. Instead, knowledge is considered as one of the several factors that help shaping the behavior. So while knowledge is essential, it is not sufficient on its own to trigger that pro-environmental behavior that we want from people in terms of adopting these sustainable practices. So some other factors that have been identified in terms of affecting GSI adoption are the demographic characteristics, the socio-economic characteristics of the community, and also the differences in terms of geographic context, which makes it important to understand the role of such characteristics across different contexts. So this lack of knowledge on factors that influence residents' intention to adopt GSI contributes to a high level of uncertainty and reluctance among organizations to promote GSI through culture programs. And also these conflicting viewpoints also highlight the need for continued exploration of the factors that influence residents' intention to adopt GSI. So based on this gap that we have identified in the literature, we have came up with two major research questions. One being, what are the strongest social psychological determinants of residents' intentions to adopt GSI? And also, what role do knowledge, experience, and demographic characteristics play in individuals' intentions to adopt GSI? To answer this question, we have use a theoretical framework that is called theory of planned behavior, which is basically a psychological theory that attempts to predict human behavior by linking beliefs to behavior. So this theory explains that the three core components, including attitude, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control, together shape an individual's behavioral intention. So here, by attitude, we mean how positively or negatively people perceive a behavior. By subjective norm, we mean the social pressure that people feel from their close community, like their friends, their neighbors, their family, their colleagues, and also their community as a whole, or even their local municipality to engage or not in a behavior. And the perceived behavioral control basically refers to the person's perception of their ability to perform that behavior. For example, do they have enough time? Do they have enough knowledge, the physical ability, or enough space, for example, to install GSI practices? So to answer our research question, we have conducted an online survey, which has been developed in Qualtrics, and the survey consists of 7 major sections. 5 of them are related to the TPB constructs, one of the demographic characteristics, and the one on knowledge and past experiences. We conducted an in-depth literature review to develop each survey question, and also we framed the question so that they focus on rain gardens and their adoption and behavior within the street setting, Rain gardens, which are basically a shallow depression planted within native vegetation to capture, absorb, and filter stormwater, was selected as it is a representative type of GSI. Because rain gardens are practical and visible types of GSI that residents are more likely to encounter and adopt. So this choice allows for a more accessible and representative exploration of socio-cognitive factors influencing GSI. We also chose to focus on GSI adoption in the street rather than in private yards to ensure the inclusivity of both homeowners and renters and residents who do not own their homes. They often have limited control over installing GSI in their yards, so making the street a more equitable setting for studying GSI adoption. We also decided to distribute the survey in 3 major cities. Each one of them were selected based on their level of progress and advancement in GSI, so respondents would have a varying level of exposure to GSI. In our case, Baltimore was selected because as a city with limited efforts or still at the beginning of applying GSI practices, Pittsburgh being at the middle level, have done some pretty good work in terms of GSI, and Portland being an advanced city. We have collected around 418 complete responses with almost evenly distributed data across the 3 cities. And then using the Species and R packages, we analyzed the results to answer the 2 research questions. So the results of our data analysis revealed some interesting data. For example, the results for our first first research question, which was, what are the strongest social psychological determinants of GSI adoption behavior? First of all, we found that very minimal variation across the 3 cities. So this means that most of the variation in GSI adoption behavior occurs at the individual level rather than the city level. And also in terms of the TPB variables, we found that the perceived behavioral control had the strongest association with intentions, followed by subjective norms, and then attitudes, on the other hand, were only weakly associated with intentions. Among the knowledge, experience, and demographic variables, only GSI knowledge and conservative political ideology had a meaningful relationship with intentions. And also past behavior was not a significant predictor of intention, so we dropped it from the analysis. The analysis of the effect of the contextual factors on TPB constructs also showed that GSI knowledge was associated with all the 3 TPB variables, and the only other knowledge and experience variable in the final models was the GSI experience, which had a marginally significant association with social norms. From other external factors, we found that race, which was specifically being Black, was negatively associated with the attitudes. And also, as you can see, in terms of the other demographic characteristics, many of the demographics were associated with attitude, with only 1 or 2 being associated with subjective norm and perceived behavioral control. So overall, these results suggest that even though knowledge is necessary, but it must be coupled with a strong sense of efficacy and also a supportive environment to lead to actual behavior change. So urban planners and policymakers are likely to have the greatest success if they can enhance perceived behavioral control by providing residents with the necessary tools, resources, and support to implement GSI practices. And also community-based initiatives that cultivate social norms favoring GSI adoption can also play a very important role in encouraging behavior change And educational campaigns should go beyond raising awareness by addressing perceived barriers so they can help residents turn their intentions into concrete future actions. Thank you everyone for paying attention to my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any possible questions that you might have. Sorry again for not being able to join in person, but I have included my email address here. Feel free to reach out if you have any comments, suggestions, or are interested in learning a little bit more about the other phases of my project.